We can spend a lot of time in denial about a lot of things, but particularly about the current state in our marriage, the dynamic we've created, how we're truly feeling. In fact, whenever I take on a new client, I always say, listen, we need to create a space where we are open and honest with each other. But then I asked them this question: guess who the person is that you lie to the most? And they always take a moment to think about this, but eventually they get it and they're like, ourselves. And I'm like, yep, we lie to ourselves. And even when we feel like we're being honest, sometimes we really can't see the full truth of something. And that's why I love to get my clients started on, or starting with me, with the marriage assessment. So before we get into any big programs or whatever, let's get a marriage assessment done, because I need you to see the truth of what's really going on in your marriage. Now, the Bible says that, get wisdom, but in all you're getting, get understanding. I cannot tell you how much gaining understanding, first of all, gaining the absolute truth about your current situation, the dynamic that you're in, how you created it, how you got there, but then gaining an understanding of yourself and of your partner. Absolute game changer. So what I thought would be great would be to have a look at a marriage assessment, a real one that I did with a couple some time back. Don't worry, I've completely changed their names, which took ages, but I did it. And so that you can see the sort of insight you're going to get when you do this marriage assessment. Because the truth is, you can't change what you don't know. And you don't know what you can't see. Like if it has not become apparent to you, if you're not aware of it, you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And that's how we can spend so long going round and round in circles, thinking that we're dealing with the issue in our marriage, but we're not, because we cannot see it. And it's almost that thing where, if you're in the woods, you can't really see the difference between the trees and all of that. It's almost like you're taking a bird's eye view and getting to see your marriage from that perspective and all angles. Now, this isn't easy. I'm going to say this. It's not easy, because facing the truth of your relationship can feel really difficult, right? It forces you to have to address it. It's going to force you to do some self-reflection, take some responsibility, and it's definitely going to force you to stop pointing your finger at your partner. You're going to see your relationship for what it truly is. But like I said before, more importantly, you're going to see yourself for who you truly are, and your partner, and how all of that is coming together to create the marital experience that you have. Now, it would be remiss of me not to remind you, as I always do, that the marital experience you are having today is based on what you have created, what you have sown in through your behaviors, your habits, how you communicate, the choices that you make, how you show up every day is literally just painting this picture of this marriage that you are experiencing and living within. As daunting as that sounds, it's actually very empowering, because it means that if you're not happy with it, once you gain the understanding of what truly is going wrong and what you guys need to do, you just need to take action, and you're going to change the experience. You're going to change the dynamic. You're going to change this marriage through and through. So again, this is really important, right? But I've done enough of the preamble. I guess we're at the point where you guys are probably like, right, Adesi, get on with it. Let's see this report. Let's have a look at this assessment. Now, heads up, I'm not showing you all of it in this one video, because it would be very, very long. So we're going to deal with 3 aspects. That is the couple's typology. We're going to deal with the relationship dynamic, and we're going to have a look at personal stressors. Let's get into it. So before we go into anything, just let me help you understand what happens here. When you receive the marriage assessment, both your partner and you will receive it individually. You complete it online. You are to be 110% honest with yourself. And you're supposed to fill this in individually, as in we're not going to talk about our answers. We're not going to sort of collaborate on how we're going to answer you. You fill this in individually. It does take a little bit of time, takes about 30 minutes, but it's all just tick boxes. You don't have to write any big long paragraphs about anything. It's just tick boxes. But the core thing here is that you are 110% honest and that you do it alone. Both of you will do it. Once it's done, I get alerted that both of you have completed your assessment, and then I get the opportunity to analyze it. So what you're seeing here is one of the first core areas of the assessment that we look into. And this is usually the first place that I take my clients when they're in their 90-minute feedback session, the couple typology. And this kind of gives you an idea of the kind of couple that we're dealing with, right? And the core areas that we're looking at in this marriage. And so you can see the core areas underneath here. And we assess it according to growth area, which is a nice way of saying an area that you guys are really doing terribly at. And then possible growth area where it's like, okay, this isn't great, but you know, there's room for improvement for sure. And then we get to possible strength where it's like, okay, this is looking like an area that is actually holding you guys up, that you guys are doing well in. And then when it's a full strength area, it's like A star, you guys are doing amazing in this, keep on rocking, right? And so you can see across board here the areas that a couple is really struggling in and areas that the couple is really doing well. And so based on this couple, who I have decided to call Barry and Sally. Don't ask me why. It made me giggle at the time, and I decided to roll with it. Okay, so this is the report for Barry and Sally. It is an original report, but I'm giving them that name just to protect their identity. Now let's deal with the areas that this couple are doing good in, right? These are stronger areas. And that is leisure activity, friends and family, and character traits, right? And so when we're talking about leisure activity, it's usually with spending time with each other. Maybe they enjoy the things that they do together. Maybe they tend to work on projects together. It may be that they go on holidays together. There's a certain level of togetherness in their leisure, but also both of them might have individual stuff that they've got going on as well, which definitely is going to enhance a marriage. Because when I have my own interests, that's going to fulfill me and give me something to bring into the relationship, shift my energy, which again I put into the relationship. So it could be a combination of those things, right? But leisure activities is definitely something that is holding up this relationship. When it comes to friends and family, this again is maybe a shared value in friends and family. Maybe friends and family really play an important role in their relationship. It may mean that they've got a nice, good community around them, which is really important for marriages. Because we know that our marriages don't just impact us, but it impacts our community, and our community can also impact our marriage in a positive way or negative, but hopefully this is in a positive way. Their character traits are how they feel about each other's character traits, right? Their personality. And so it looks like on the whole, they actually like each other, which is interesting because on the flip side, you can see here that their partner style and habits is rock bottom. So that's an area where I like who you are and your character traits, but I don't like how you go about things, right? I don't like some of the decisions that you make. I don't like your behaviors, but the person that you are, I really like you. And so those three elements are the three elements that they're really doing well in, and it's holding up their relationship. When it comes to spiritual beliefs. This is a little bit lower. It's not quite a strength. It's definitely in an area that they need to grow in, but it may be that they are on different paths right now. Maybe they believe. I find that couples that are struggling in their spiritual belief, it might be that one is really gun ho with their Christian faith, goes to church regularly and gets involved, and maybe the other is, not at that level, doesn't even want to be at that level. They're just not seeing eye to eye in terms of their spiritual walk. Now, I've got a whole thing that I want to say about that, but I'm going to leave it for now because we've got quite a lot to go through with this as I show you more of the assessment. For me, it's no surprise that because there's a breakdown in communication, that they don't know how to handle conflict, and they're struggling in their financial management, because all of that and their sexual expectation, all of that relies on communication, right? So if we just don't know how to communicate, we're definitely not going to be able to resolve conflict properly. We're not going to be able to talk about our financial management, and we're not going to be building the emotional connection required and emotional intimacy required in order to have, linked and good and healthy sexual expectations and sexual experiences here. So that's what you will receive. That's what the couples receive. It's the first thing that I show them when we start our 90-minute feedback session. Now, what happens here is that the couples are usually put into categories. And if they had all these bars hitting the roof, they would be classed as vitalized, which are couples who are typically most satisfied with their relationship, they're skilled in communication and conflict resolution, right? Then the harmonious couples are couples who enjoy high levels of satisfaction across most areas. So we're not looking for perfection here, but most areas, we do want to be seeing those bars a little higher. Conventional couples are often highly committed to one another, but not as skilled in communication or conflict, which, these two areas are so important. This particular couple fell under the category of conflicted, which means that these are the couples who have low level of satisfaction and often struggle with many areas of their relationship. So they're both not feeling very satisfied or fulfilled in this area. They're lacking, in their marriage, they're lacking in key skills around communication and conflict management, and they're just struggling in all areas. This part of the assessment I find so interesting. I find the whole assessment interesting, but I think after we've looked at the areas that the couple is really struggling in, to then go ahead and look at the dynamic that has been created is just a game changer. And so if we consider that Barry is in blue, or represented by the blue bars, and Sally is represented by the green bars. Next time I do this, I'll make sure that I color coordinate the name tabs. But for now, Barry is blue and Sally is green. And you can see that when it comes to assertiveness, that both of them are rock bottom. Now, assertiveness talks about how comfortable and able a person feels to express what they need, what they want in the relationship. It doesn't really even necessarily mean that they're not assertive outside of their relationship. But when it comes to this relationship, they do not feel like they can express themselves. They can tell their partner what they want. And it's interesting that both of them feel that way. Both of them feel like they don't have a voice, right? When it comes to self-confidence, though, it's not, like I said, it's not because they don't speak. It's not because they're not confident. It's not because they're not happy with who they are. So when it comes to self-confidence, it's really talking about, well, are you okay with yourself? Like, are you confident and happy with who you are and where you are in life? Yes. Okay, so now this lack of assertiveness, this inability to express yourself within the relationship is within the relationship mainly. Now, usually what we would want to see is high self-confidence and high assertiveness. So I'm happy with who I am and what's going on with me, and I'm also able to express if I do need something. We've got this nice dynamic in the relationship where we can talk about what our needs are and express ourselves, and I can feel great about me as well, and we're both feeling good about ourselves. So that's nice and positive. But we don't have that here. Here it's they can't speak to each other, but their self-confidence is high, which then makes me wonder why. What is stopping them from being able to speak? Now, if we go over to the avoidance area, this is where people naturally will avoid conflict in their marriage. They will avoid conflict in their relationship. It's therefore no surprise to me that you've got two of what people who operate with avoidance in their relationship who also don't feel like they can speak to each other. So for me, this is telling me that we've got two conflict avoiders or people that operate with avoidance. And because of that, both of them actually they do have stuff that they want to say, but because they're avoiders, they don't get to speak. They don't get to express themselves. And then you've got partner dominance where Barry is averagely dominant in the marriage, and on the flip side of that, Sally again, like no voice, no level of control, no level of dominance. So across board, aside from self-confidence, Sally is really just, at a really low place here. She cannot speak. She's a conflict avoider anyway, and she's got a partner who she feels she can't express herself with, who's quite dominant, particularly in comparison to the level of control she feels that she has within the relationship. So this would be something that we would really look into. I'd ask the clients to see if they can relate this back to their own marriage. Does this make sense? Does this resonate with you? They'd usually come up with sort of situations where it's like, yeah, this is why I feel this way. Yes, this absolutely makes sense. Okay, this is why that happens, right? And they start to, and oftentimes as well, even seeing their partner. So Sally might have been, all this time, might have been feeling like, well, I can't speak to you, and feel like it's all her. She's the one that can't express herself and isn't given space to express herself. Where poor Barry is feeling that way as well, like they're both in this. And also they're getting to see what their conflict avoidance is creating. And maybe they didn't know it was conflict avoidance. Maybe they were saying what most people say was, I was just trying to keep the peace. Well, actually, it was conflict avoidance, and it's creating a situation where both of you aren't able to express what you truly need, and therefore you're not able to communicate, you're not connecting well, you're not building an intimacy, and you have the marriage that you have today. So interesting. Now, the last area of the assessment I want to show you is the personal stress profile, which I don't think a lot of couples spend a lot of time thinking about, not enough time thinking about. How is stress actually impacting me and how I show up and how I'm behaving in the relationship? Or if we look outside of ourselves, I wonder just what my partner is going through in their own world, right? That's causing them to maybe show up in a certain way and impacting them. And I've completely bypassed all of this and been so wrapped up in myself that I've not seen that actually I'm with somebody here who's struggling with some personal stresses that's really taken over. And I think this is something that's happened here in this relationship where Sally is chilling, right? Or maybe just better able at dealing with stress. But she has much lower levels and just generally low levels of frustration and personal stress, right? I'm not saying that she doesn't have it, but it may be relatively low. And even if it is higher than most, she may be just better skilled at managing stress. Whereas poor old Barry his stress is through the roof. Very, very high levels of stress and frustration. And it may just come from lots of demands on his time and his energy and his mind space. But for sure, this level of stress is going to be definitely having an impact on him mentally, emotionally, and physically. what's so interesting to look at here is what is actually stressing our partners and how often they're feeling stressed. And it just gives space for a bit of compassion and empathy, maybe a slight change in perspective. So all this time, I just thought that you were being mean and distant and withdrawn, whereas really you just had so much going on. And I never asked you and I never gave space to it. I didn't really consider how heavy it was and how heavy it was, how much it was impacting you. So poor Barry is worried about his job, right? Job security, but also he's worried about his physical health and how he looks. So he feels like he's eating too much. He's often worrying about feeling overweight. He's often worrying about inadequate income, so not making enough money. And that may be causing him to not sleep so much. And then he's maybe because of his job, he's not having a lot of time with his family, not a lot of time with friends, not a lot of time for himself, right? And also he's looking at that he owes too much money. So Barry's in a real quite tight corner, particularly it looks like with his finances and his sense of well-being. Barry's not feeling great about himself. When you don't have time for yourself, for your friends, for your family, you're not sleeping well, then we've got to get worried about your mental health and your sense of well-being. That is being evidenced with eating too much. Maybe it's an emotional response to that, and therefore feeling overwhelmed and overweight, which just perpetuates that behavior, not liking yourself, responding to it emotionally with food, right? And then also maybe Barry is a man that feels, like a lot of people that their job is directly linked to their self-identity and their financial situation is part of that as well. And so if he's feeling like he doesn't have job security and he's worrying about that often, and on top of that, he's worried about money, so inadequate income and how much money that he owes. Barry's a stressed out man. And I wonder how much time, energy, empathy, and compassion Sally has given to the fact that her man is in this state, right? Sally often feels emotionally upset, maybe because Barry doesn't have time and for anybody else, not even himself, and he's so stressed out and he's so, withdrawn. Maybe they're not talking. So yeah, she's gonna get emotionally upset, but sometimes also she's got a weight thing, feeling physically ill, lack of sleep, her friends, her job, her parents, her partner, a lot of things that are on her mind, but they're just not showing up as frequently and heavily as they are for Barry. Now, oftentimes when I go through this with clients, what tends to happen is another aha moment where they're like, oh, now I understand why they were behaving this way. Now I understand why they took all the things that I said to them personally. They didn't feel seen. Now I understand why they always say, what about me? What about me? When is somebody going to see me and all the things I'm going through? And it could be that we've created a space where both Barry and Sally can't come to each other and say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And it's overwhelming me and I don't know what to do. And so, I'm sorry for part of my behavior, but this is just to sort of tell you why. Maybe they don't have a relationship where there's a freedom for that, where there's lack of judgment. And so for the clients that I work with, this really helps give space for all of that. And usually what happens is they turn to each other and they apologize and they see each other. They see each other. Right, listen, I'm going to leave that there, but in the next video that I do on this, part 2, I'm going to be addressing 3 other areas of the assessment. I'm going to be looking at the personality scales, which is basically like a personality assessment on the individual, which is so good, really eye-opening. We're going to look at the couple map, which looks at how
flexible the couple are, but also how connected they feel, connected or disconnected, and also their family map. Like, what did they experience growing up, and how is that informing how they show up in their marriage today? So good. Listen, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, um, so that you can get more tips and help on how you can create the marriage that you have always desired, knowing that you are able to. See you in the next video.